Hey, what's up guys? Today I just want to do a quick demonstration talking about scumbling. And scumbling is the shading or the shading technique that I would prefer you use for this class. I know that it is tedious, I know that it's slow, and you know you want to work faster and just get it done. But I'm telling you right now that when we talk about creating these objects and making them look more believable and highly realistic, it's going to be really important that we understand these, how do we use those techniques to best help us. So scumbling basically is just multi-directional marks, just real small marks over and over again, so we don't end up seeing a real, the linear quality that can sometimes happen. So for example, if I have a sphere and I wanted to shade that sphere and I used hatching, hatching is fine. I like hatching. That's one way to do it. But then this becomes a linear element, and it doesn't necessarily give that idea of being round. You could do cross hatching, which is the same general idea. Hatching, but then you have some perpendicular marks. The closer those perpendicular marks are, the darker value you get. So then you do still get some of that, you get that darker shadow down here, so that it does start to create that illusion. But the same way, it's not always easy to differentiate. So, and one of the ways that you guys like to do it is to kind of shade in an area, and then you bring out the almighty blending stump or your finger, and then you rub it in, and you're like, dude, that's perfect. Now, that mine was not very good. But the blending stump is something, or is kind of like, it looks kind of smudgy to me. And it doesn't necessarily give me the best value. And I know I could come back in with an eraser and kind of clean it up. But at the same time too, it doesn't always give me the best result, because you're still gonna have a real heavy value, and then you're just kind of pushing that out into different piles. So scumbling is not these, all right? Scumbling is gonna be a technique where we are doing just multiple directional marks. All right, so I'm kind of using my pencil and kind of moving all the way around. And I'm going to talk a little bit, if you notice how I'm holding my pencil, I'm not holding my pencil like I do when I'm taking notes, but I'm holding it more like toward the end of the barrel. And this is a small pencil, so it's kind of hard to hold all the way back here when you're doing these shading techniques. But I'm just kind of varying the amount of pressure I have. I'm using the side of the lead. Sometimes I might want to rotate my pencil too, so that I'm not just getting one flat side to my lead. Just kind of roll the pencil in your hand a little bit. But as I get up here, I'm just kind of backing off that pressure so it becomes a little bit softer. Again, backing off, and then making those marks in all kind of different directions to create that idea. Okay? Now, one of the things you'll notice in any one of these is that nothing, when we shade, nothing should have an outline, right? When we're walking down the street and we see a person coming toward us, they don't have an outline around them, right? Or when I pick up an orange out of the bowl, that orange does not have an outline around it that determines where it is. So what I want you to do is learn how to shade all the way up to the edge lightly, but understand that what separates that object from this to another object is a change in value. So if I wanted to add another sphere behind this using scumbling, I could just shade, just begin shading. And it's the contrast of value from one object to the next. So I'm just shading this all the way up. Again, I'm going to vary my pressure. I got my pencil kind of on its side, laying down some graphite, and I'm just kind of creating that illusion. All right, so when I'm working on these, when I'm doing this technique, it takes time. I know it takes time. And I'm going to do a kind of a longer demo here in a couple minutes, but what I want you to practice doing is just making these multiple marks. Don't try and scribble it in, because when I see this, and I can see those linear elements, it doesn't give that illusion of solidity. It doesn't give that illusion of being one solid form. What it does is it becomes linear, and I start to separate out those areas. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is when you're doing these shading techniques is make sure that you're getting some real dark values and some real light values. So practice getting those transitions, because you don't want to have it go from dark to light real fast. It's almost like either the darkness kind of bleeds into the light value, so you want to have like a smooth transition from one to the next. You don't really want to have too harsh of a shadow. Sometimes you will, but pay attention, especially like if it's on the object. Pay attention to where that shadow is and how it bleeds into. Again, this is going to come back to observing the object and really paying attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a small demonstration. I'm going to just do an apple. And I'm going to give myself the guidance. And again, I'm breaking my own rules, and I'm not drawing from observation on this apple. But I'm just giving myself some guidance as to where the apple shape is. But at the end, what I will do is probably use my eraser or an eraser to lift out these edges so it doesn't look like it's got an outline around it. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to also make sure that I'm using a range of pencils. I have my number 2 pencil, which is an HB. I have a 2B, which is going to be a little bit darker, and I have my 6B pencil, which is going to give me my darkest values. So practice using all those range of values as well. So I'm going to put this in kind of a sped up mode, and then from there we will continue to work. Okay? So hold tight. Okay, so we have our apple now. One of the things that I forgot to mention and that I should have mentioned before I started was anytime you're shading an object, it's easy to kind of go based on what we think it's going to look like, and we just go out of our head, but you always want to indicate some sort of a light source. I don't know if you can see it with the way that it is, but we're going to pretend that's a sun, and we know that the sun is kind of shining this way at it. That way we know when our light source is hitting our object where the highlight should be, and then which way that cast shadow goes. So this is called a form shadow. The shadow that exists on the actual form would be considered form shadow, and the shadow that it creates on a surface or whatever it's on will be considered a cast shadow. So understanding where your light source is on all objects is going to be really, really important. That's why it's kind of fun to sometimes limit your light sources, because if I was to take a picture here in the classroom, there are 8 to 12 different lights coming on. So those are all, and they're all that light sources coming from different angles. So you have shadows coming from multiple directions. So always be real clear on where your light source is. Also notice that there's not a heavy outline all the way around this object. It's, the value just shades up to the edge of where I wanted it to. And then also has a real light value, because we know that it's, we want it to separate it from the paper. We don't want it to blend into the background. So it has a slight value all the way around this edge too. And sometimes, again, you can just use that eraser to kind of clean it up so that you get a nice soft edge transition. Now, if there was something to be behind it, I would continue to add that value, shade right up to that edge and stop. But please don't let those outlines determine your edges or things like that. And we'll talk more as the week goes on about how shading drapery is also going to be an effective strategies for shading drapery, and continue to build up those skills. But for now, slow yourself down. Use this shading technique that's going to create, even if you're doing it with just one single mechanical pencil. Again, hold your pencil so that you have more surface area on the paper. When you hold it at an angle, you're getting more lead on the paper at the same time. If you're going straight down, you only have the tip. So keep it on its side. Don't put too much pressure on it if it's a mechanical pencil, because you will end up breaking your lead. Hold your pencil back on the barrel so that you can continue to get that surface area of graphite onto the paper, and move in multiple directions and just slowly work your way around. Okay, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If not, feel free to hit me up during office hours. I am more than willing to demonstrate this to you one-on-one, okay? Well, keep going. You're doing great. I can't wait to see your progress by the end of the week. Thanks.